one of the biggest things I think that eats me up is being a creative person is trying not to compare yourself to other people, because you see other people on their journey, and some people will go at a very accelerated pace and others won't. And I just always tell myself, whatever speed I'm going at, that's the speed that I need to be going at. That's my speed. So when I get there, that's whatever. That's how old I'll be when I get there.
Welcome to the Evolved Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Fitzpatrick. Today on the show, we have my friend, Tommy Filippini. From a young age, Tommy explored his creativity through craft, and he has been on a forever journey to further developing it. In high school, Tommy studied drafting and engineering, and in college, he studied industrial design focused on reintegration of single-use products through sustainability. Tommy served as an overseas development volunteer for the United States Peace Corps to the Philippines in his mid-20s, and he provided locals with livelihood development training and handicraft production. He moved to Richmond, Virginia shortly thereafter to start a jewelry apprenticeship, and now works out of his private studio in the city. Tommy's primary craft is working as a jeweler for his brand WASH DSGN. He creates adornments for the body that reflect the realities of nature and industrial complexity. The juxtaposition of straight lines to natural curves. WASH DSGN pays homage to the belief that opposites, when attracted, work together in unison and complement each other. I met Tommy about a year ago while we were on the Broad Street Bullies group bike ride here in Richmond, Virginia. And we just struck up a conversation with each other, and he's been a great dude to know. I think it's super easy to connect with Tommy because he's so personable and likable. And I'm grateful that we've had a chance to develop our friendship through our love of biking and creativity. So without further ado, here is Tommy Filippini. Let's go. Well, Tommy, thank you for being on the podcast. Stoked to have this conversation with you. It's been a long time coming, but it's going to be a good one. And you've been on like a couple other podcasts before, you mentioned, right?
One previously with my buddy Vic.
Yeah. And that was about a year or two ago, right?
No, I want to say 6 months.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Because we met around this time last summer. And we know each other from the Broad Street Bullies bike group, local bike riding group here in Richmond, Virginia. And we struck up a conversation with each other at the end of the ride, and, have been buds ever since then. So happy to know you. But for those that don't know you, can you please just give a brief introduction on who you are, what you do for a living, and what you're passionate about?
All right. Well, hey, everybody. My name's Tommy. I'm a jeweler, and I've been designing, fabricating jewelry for about the past 10 years, and it is a lifelong journey for me. And that's what brought me to Richmond originally, to start an apprenticeship. And before coming to Richmond, a lot of people told me about this city, and I was intrigued before even stepping foot. And when I got here, fell in love. And it just so happens that I was able to find something that aligned with what I wanted to do in a city that I was interested about. But before that, I've always been super hands-on, always been really big into arts and crafts. As you can see, I got a bunch of paintings. That's what I like to do as a hobby. And that really got kicked off heavily, I would say, during the pandemic. One of those hobbies that goes and then comes back. Yeah, in high school, I went to a trade high school for computer aided drafting and design. I got a job as like an applications engineer at an aircraft bearing company. And from there, that helped me kind of forge a path of what I wanted to do with my future self, where I am right now. And that was really step away from a computer and just really get in touch with my creative side. And having that experience in high school really helped me better hone what I wanted in my future. So in college, I came across a major industrial design, which when people ask me what that is, I really say it could be anything. But really what industrial design is, a little bit of architecture, a little bit of engineering, all thrown into a big hat of fine arts. So it had something that I had a familiar background in, with the drafting, and then taking that to a next level with a strong art history foundation, which I really never had before. And from there, I had a teacher who really pushed me into jewelry fabrication, because part of the industrial design course was, if you can think it, you can create it. So it's really make anything you can come up with. And jewelry design and fabrication really goes hand in hand with that idea. So he pushed me into that to really do a project on jewelry. So I said, all right, we did that. And actually at the time I was working at a longboard factory, soda factory. Shout out Russ, what up? And I was working on a project for snow skates. And that's like a skateboard that you can ride on snow. And he said, if you do your senior thesis project on this snow skate, basically as an R&D to develop what I was working on even further into something that could go into production. He said you could take that as a role, but instead I chose to do that project on jewelry, specifically bottle cap necklaces, because industrial design is really focused on creating a new product. And at that point in my life, I was really interested in products that have already been creative, but that were only being used at one time. So trying to re-envision or reinstate value in objects that were discarded. And that's just something that intrigues me in my head, and what you can do with materials that are already out there. So I did a bottle cap jewelry project. And that kind of just pushed my jewelry journey even further. And after college, wasn't really too sure what I wanted to do with myself. So I applied for the US Peace Corps, really having no idea what I would get myself into, just having a complete open mind about everything. Mm-hmm. So I ended up getting an invitation to go to the Philippines. And when I got there, I was placed in a room of like 30 social workers. And I was extremely felt out of place, coming from a place of, art and engineering background. And that whole experience at the time was really jaw-dropping, I guess, to say the least, because you're in a room full of people who would be experts in the subject that you know nothing about. So I was sent to a social service office in Siquijor, which is a tiny island, South Central Philippines, and started working with kids in a college scholarship program, mentoring them to make sure they pass all their classes, to which they did, which was awesome. And then on top of that, also helped manage a livelihood program. So it's basically just going to all the beneficiaries' houses and making sure that they were utilizing the grants for small businesses. And then also worked with a group called Fab Lab, which is started by MIT in Massachusetts, which is an open resource laboratory for the locals to use and help develop any products or handicrafts that they might have, packaging, branding, etc. And that really fell in line with what I was doing previously. But also all the other projects that I was doing in the Philippines also helped hone other skills, especially public speaking. So if you ever try to do that in a language that you aren't the most confident in, or it's a second language, it's definitely an experience to try out.
Did you have to learn Tagalog?
I learned Tagalog when I got there, and I was in Central Philippines, and that was the main language spoken there. But there's over 85 recognized language in the Philippines. So I was sent into training, Central Philippines, sent down to the south where they spoke Cebuano. So when I got there, nobody knew Tagalog, and I was like, okay, I'm going to start from square one.
Right.
But to get back on the journey, after I got back from the Philippines, I said, now is a good time if I really want to dive into myself, is to see where I can go with this jewelry. So I started in my parents' basement in Connecticut, did that for close to a year, maybe less, and did the craft show network hard, had a good mentor for that. And then when I moved to Richmond to undergo this jewelry apprenticeship, also carried that. We're doing a lot of craft shows and then building from there, which is a whole nother experience in itself.
Yeah. Well, a lot to unpack there. And
so much. I could even go on in deeper.
Yeah, and we will. So first off, when did you start your brand Wash Design?
That started in college. So it was really originally called Raggy Wash, and that term originates from the northwest part of the United States. Specifically in Connecticut, it was a term that you would call dirty people, I guess you could say. And then wash is the act of cleansing it. So bringing something that is considered dirty and then reinstating value into it.
Right. And that's something you do practically as well when you're making jewelry, right?
Yeah. So a lot of it, not to interrupt you, but a lot of it with the name change, I dropped Raggy because it was a lot of explaining to people. So I said wash is just a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
And then we just add design to it, make it work.
Yeah, but you dropped the vowels in design.
Yeah, but the original idea for it was upcycled products.
Mm-hmm. Right, like with the bottle cap jewelry. So was that the first iteration of your brand, and you just expanded it from there?
I would say yes, definitely. That is probably 2013, I think, was the year if we had to put a stamp on it. And now, even though I don't focus on upcycled products, there's still an act of recycling that's going on in my studio with reusing and remelting down silver scraps and things like that into a new piece. So it
Yeah.
does have that life cycle.
Yeah. Can you talk about that and how like you try and practice sustainability in your work?
Definitely. Mostly for me in my studio, I'm really always trying to collect anything that gets cut off from the piece I'm making, whether it's a chunk of material to even the dust, that can all be refined down. And easier said than done, because sometimes pieces will just jump off the bench. But a lot of work goes into procuring those materials from the earth. So you got to think of all the mining practices that happen to get silver or whatever metal I'll be working with at the time. If I could just reduce that a little bit, even though it might not make a difference, it helps at the end of the day, definitely in my pockets as well.
Right. Yeah. It's more cost effective long term if you're able to use as much of the product as possible. And I know, for the gems that you use, you usually source those from different, as well as other distributors, correct?
Yeah, I would say since coming to Richmond, gemology has been a new topic that I've been learning. And that was definitely something that was introduced by my former mentor. So, and when buying gems, you always want to pick them up from a trusted source, because in the market, you could be sold something that isn't what you're told, if that makes sense. Just because
Yeah.
it looks like something doesn't mean it can't be something else. And having a trained eye to identify all those, as well as a knowledge of the history of where it came from, helps a huge part.
Definitely. And I know like you're, making pieces, that are self-motivated, but you're also making custom pieces for your clients, right? And you want to provide, especially when it's something that they've requested, something that is authentic, and of the quality that they're expecting.
Yeah, totally. And to touch on it too, if anybody is probably thinking, oh yeah, diamonds, there are, when you buy diamonds, conflict-free certificates
Right.
that will come with a stone that could be suspected it came from a non or a conflicted area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, backing up now, you mentioned earlier how like you were really attracted to Richmond before you moved here. So can you talk about like what attracted you to, come here in the first place?
A couple things, like I said, people who have lived in this city just said, Tommy, you look like you would like Richmond. And I go, that's funny, because you're not the first person to tell me that. And then my sister and brother-in-law moved to Richmond years ago for work, and they were trying to get me to come down to actually live here. And I said, I just need work. But when I came down for my first visit, it was all the murals on the buildings. And I think that catches a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, just really amazing artwork all around. And after being in Connecticut, living in Connecticut, connecting with other artists there versus my time in Richmond, there's a huge contrast. And what Richmond has to offer is very attractive to me. There's artists who are, my own age. They're in my similar situations that I am. So it's very easily to relate to other people, and also talking to other people and learning from their experiences is a valuable piece of information. And Connecticut wasn't really getting as much of that as I was here. And then, like you said before earlier, how we connected was through cycling. And that's a huge passion of mine. And where I'm at in the city, I can just ride my bike right down to the river, hit those mountain bike trails, or hop on my bike and put miles on inside the city or go outside the city and just have a lot of all worlds.
Yeah, there's a
So
lot.
close.
Absolutely. Lots to explore, and it's very bikeable, pretty much no matter where you are. And lots of great art too, like you mentioned. I know you said hobby, like painting is a hobby of yours, but have you done any mural painting, or do you have any desire to do that?
No, definitely not. I was reading, I think it was the artist Humble. He has a lot of murals, and he put a story out on Instagram one day that was just like an instant, like, oh yeah, I would probably never do a mural. And it was, if you're afraid of heights, because you got to hang over 5 feet to get that one brush stroke. And I go, definitely not me.
Are you afraid of heights?
Not so much, but I just don't want to put myself in a situation where I might be afraid of heights. So I just got a bunch of paintings stacked up.
Yeah, well, that's really cool. I mean, at least you can do the format that you're comfortable with, and you can always scale up if you want to. Maybe
Oh
not.
yeah, baby steps.
Hey guys, brief pause in the episode to tell you about some of the great businesses that support this podcast. First, we got Weight Train. Use code Evolved Podcast to get 10% off all Weight Train and Athleticity gym gear and apparel. No matter what you need for your workouts, they have the gear to help you get it done. And if you don't see something you want, email them at team@weighttrain.com and they will take your requests for new products. Visit Weight Train for all your gym gear needs. Next is True Nutrition. Use code Evolved Podcast to get 5% off all nutrition supplements. I'm personally a fan of their soy isolate vegan protein powder, available in a variety of flavors and strengths, from light to heavy. They also have non-vegan protein powders if that's not your thing. I personally recommend the cinnamon bun and toasted coconut flavors in the heavy strength, and I add them to waffles, oatmeal, protein shakes, and ice cream. They're delicious. Check out their wide range of supplements at affordable prices that are third-party tested and verified for content quality. They are able to provide such great prices because the supplements come direct from the manufacturer without any marketing gimmicks or fancy labels. Visit truenutrition.com to supplement your workouts and your nutrition. Last is Hate Brand Goods. Use code Evolved Podcast to get 15% off all Hate Brand clothing and accessories. Their goat shorts and shirts are the most comfortable clothing I've ever worn, and they have the coolest designs. However, their clothing drops are only available in limited quantities, so get your favorites while you can, and be on the lookout for other drops that you're stoked on. Visit thehate.com, spelled HVIII, for clothing to remind the world that you're not dead yet and you're ready to kick today in the dick. Back to the show. What would you say is your why for pursuing the art, that you're passionate about, whether that's painting or jewelry making?
My why would be there's an urge inside of me that makes me feel a certain way if I don't create, if I'm not putting something out there or just creating something, forming it with my hands. And I know this urge, this feeling whenever I'm working, not doing something creative, basically. What any other job that I had that wasn't creative based, there would always be the thought in the back of my mind telling myself that every hour that you spend here is 1 hour that you're taking away from yourself being the creative person that you want to be. The fact that I was able to find jewelry was just a matter of fact, and it feels like stumbling onto luck. Because like painting, jewelry is also an art form. jewelry to me is just very accessible. You wear it outside, so it gets known, it gets seen, things like that. Other things like a painting, it usually just stays in one place, and not everybody gets to appreciate it. Unlike jewelry, where you get to wear it outside and it gives you a feeling, and that feeling is something that drives me in my creative process. Because I want people to feel a certain type of way when they put a piece of mine on. It's like an elevated feeling. I believe the term is called enclosed transition. And that's like if you were to put a Halloween costume on or something like that, you feel like you might be a little bit different. And that's that experience, that's that emotion taking place.
That's cool. I've never heard of that before, but yeah, it makes sense. When you wear a certain, type of clothing, it, makes you feel a certain way, and the same applies to jewelry. I know all matter, whether it's living or not, contains kinetic energy, and that energy transfers between objects. So, and you as the artist yourself, you're putting your own energy into the jewelry that you're creating as well. So, I guess that's an interesting way to look at it in terms of how the energy from yourself, the artist, as well as the products that you're making, are transferred to the people who wear them, and then transferred into them as well.
Yeah, there's a huge drive for me just to just be using these hands and making something.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. Like if I were to do something creative on the computer, it wouldn't give me the same type of satisfaction that I do tactile with my hands, carving out the piece, drawing it on paper, it just experimenting with forms, color when I'm painting. It gives me a great feeling of satisfaction by doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes me think of, my personal experiences when it comes to creating art. I do largely digital art, making videos, and now making podcasts. But I do get a certain level of satisfaction that's different, when I'm doing something that is more hands-on, like making food, for example.
Oh yeah.
Culinary arts is an art in a certain degree. Sometimes more elevated. My home cooking might not necessarily be as elevated, but there is, a certain level of art to it. Do you work in any other mediums?
Other than really painting and then metals, no, I'm not much of a carpenter. I'm not much of no, I don't really think so. Off the top of my head, I got a garden growing out back with a bunch of sunflowers, if that counts as a medium.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also do love to cook as well.
What do you like to cook?
Ooh, so many things. I like to think of myself though as a scratch cooker. So if there was just nothing specific to cook, just show me the refrigerator and the spice cabinet and we're good to go. I can make something happen.
I love it. Yep. Got it. Sometimes you got to cook on the fly.
Oh, totally.
Did you ever have to cook when you were in the Philippines?
I was there for 3 years, and 2 of the years I lived with a host family, and they really did not want me to cook at all. And I think I'm a pretty decent cook. It was just in the culture that as a guest, I wouldn't cook.
Right.
I've cooked a couple meals there, and then when I lived on myself, I cooked a bunch.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's totally different diet than what I was used to living in America. And that was a shock at first. But now after transitioning back into American life, I've noticed that I do have some Filipino cooking tendencies in my repertoire. I eat a lot of rice. Let's go.
I love rice. Yeah.
Rice yeah.
Do you have any like industrial designer influences that you like to look to?
Specifically, not so much industrial designer influences. I would say, as someone I do look up to would be Alexander Calder. And he was an artist in the, I want to say, early to mid 1900s. Came from a family of engineers, I believe, and then trained as a fine artist. And he has a lot of pieces around the world, and they're usually very tall, made out of large pieces of sheet metal, and also these big hanging floating mobiles. They actually have one at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts.
Oh, cool.
Not a big one, but it's one. It's a Calder piece. But what I like about his work is there is a kinetic function that they move, but it also is heavily reliant on the hierarchy of the sizes, shapes, and weight of the pieces. So they have this balance, this symbiosis, that they interact with each other so gently, even though the pieces are giant.
That's cool. I'll have to check that out.
Oh yeah, Alexander Calder.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Tom Sachs?
I am not. Who is he?
He's an industrial design artist based in New York City. I found out about his work through the YouTube channel The Spirited Man, which is run by Van Neistat.
Oh yeah.
Definitely check it out if you haven't.
If I type in Spirited Man on YouTube, will that come up?
Yes. But Van Neistat was an employee of Tom, and he's been his mentor for a while. He made a great video about how Tom has been his mentor for many years. But he's just done really like incredible work using like recycled materials and like the principles of like what you've talked about like are really present in his work. So I was just curious if you had.
I'm definitely about to check him out.
Sweet. Let's see. What project are you currently working on, or have you recently finished?
I would say, well, what I'm working on now is my gold portfolio. So came to Richmond, started learning to work with silver. And that's been about 5 years coming now, and slowly entering into learning how to work with gold. So there's a lot of baby steps with that, and learning things along the way, trying to utilize as many resources as I can online, like YouTube or online forums, even on Facebook, help a lot. But yeah, learning to work with gold. So if you follow me on Instagram, keep an eye out for these new pieces.
And you worked with copper as well, right?
Yeah. So when I beginning my jewelry journey, it was pretty much all copper. And until I came up to Richmond, and I was still doing it for a while here, and I still do have pieces available in copper. But it's just a natural transition of, I think, of a jeweler. You start with your base metals, and then you move your way up to finer metals as it goes.
As you transition into working more with gold, do you plan to continue working with silver and coppers or any of the like less fine metals?
I would say I definitely plan on sticking with silver, if not forever, for a while. Really enjoyable to work with. It's easy. Copper is very stiff and it has a high melting temperature. So you really got to get it hot to work with, and it does not cast well. So silver is just right there where it's at a good price point, and it's easy to work with, and it looks really nice when you shine it up.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then you get with gold, and it's like 100% cost more. So
Yeah.
it makes for a smaller market.
Uh, Interesting. Yeah. I don't know too much about the jewelry market, but it's cool to get the insider's perspective on it.
Oh yeah, go on Google and type in spot price of gold and silver, and you'll just see the contrast in prices. It's wild.
Okay. Yeah. Other than biking, which we talked about, do you have any other types of exercises you like to do for a workout routine?
Ooh, other types of, I would say if I was near a pool, I would say swimming, but it's pretty much cycling. We got some pull ups, we got some sit ups for the core, but mostly just cycling.
And do you ride with any other bike groups other than Broad Street Bullies and Casual Runners? You said you do the Vossen Sunday ride sometimes, right?
No, I actually haven't done that yet. And I've gone with Phil's new group, Biking Buds, maybe I believe it is. Went
Yeah.
with them once, so I'm trying to make that a staple
Cool.
for
Yeah,
the Wednesdays.
I want to check that out too. It's cool that there's a lot more bike groups popping up in Richmond. You know, it is a very diverse bike community, and
Oh, definitely. Yeah, there's a little bit of everything.
yeah. When you say like a little bit of everything, like what do you look for in a bike group?
Ooh, a little bit of road, and then maybe hit a little bit of single track,
Yeah.
a little bit of gravel, something like that. Make it interesting. And then hit some miles on some roads.
Yep.
Get that energy out.
Mhm. Do you consider yourself a pretty energetic person?
No, definitely not. I would definitely say cool, calm, and most of the time, sometimes relaxed.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Do you ever get in a creative slump?
Oh yeah, all the time. All the time. I think what happens when that happens, I automatically know it. I can feel it. Sometimes I can anticipate it coming, which isn't healthy.
Yeah.
But it's one of the reasons why I lean so hard into painting, because I really have zero expectations out of what I do on the canvas. And if I don't like something that I do, I could just paint over or retouch it. And there's no repercussions of it. There's no deadlines. It's just me trying to get out any type of creativity. And if I just so happen to throw something down that I like, it kind of helps me push myself out of that creative slump. Because
Right.
yeah, when you're working in creativity, you try to build a vocabulary around that represents you and your work. And there's only so much that you can create at a time that sometimes you say you feel you exhausted this idea or that technique too much, and you're trying to pull something new out of you that's not quite there or developed yet. So when it happens, I like to just throw down some paints and kind of get that shower idea mentality going, where it's like I'm not thinking, but something's gonna pop into my head through actively not thinking about it.
So have you gotten new ideas for jewelry while painting?
It's usually a technical issue that's giving me problems. So how am I gonna bring two pieces to connect to each other that look like it is intended? So sometimes it's some geometry followed with just the hierarchy of how things look in the composition. So it'll be just doing something regular, coming up with as many ideas in my head, writing them down on paper until one of them just clicks. Sometimes that will happen when I'm riding my bicycle. Sometimes it will happen when I'm doing some paintings or just doing anything that I'm not even actively thinking about it.
What's your morning routine like? What do you do when you wake?
Good question. My morning routine is pretty relaxed. Get up around 9 o'clock, take a shower, usually do a smoothie or some other type of breakfast, check on my flowers, and then that will probably all take about an hour or so, and then hit the studio.
And where's the studio in relation to your apartment?
Right next door.
Oh, sweet. That's gonna be
Totally.
good stuff, man.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I was searching for about 6 months, and I just had an idea of my mind what I wanted. And after 6 months of searching, finally came across where I am now, and met with it was the building owner, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we're looking for an artist for this spot." And I go, "Hey, I kind of do art. Let's go." And I was the
that's-
first person to check it out, and jumped on it instantly.
yeah, that's perfect for you. What do you like to put in your smoothies?
Oh, I probably do like 50-50 vegetable fruit, mostly raw too.
Solid combo. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so not so much sweet, but definitely nutritious.
Yeah. Good for you,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, they don't always taste the great, but I know they're giving me exactly what I need. I'll put it that way.
Do you have any hobbies you practice that help you to stay productive, remember new ideas, or add value to your life in other ways? And
Oh,
if so, what are they?
I would definitely say keep lists. Every time I try, every time I feel like I'm not really rolling in the momentum that I want to, it's because I haven't been keeping lists and checking things off. So
Mhm.
just being able to do that so I can gauge what kind of successes I have. And these successes could be super minimal, as like going grocery shopping, but it's just having that as something to do and being able to cross it off. I call them
Right.
like attainable goals. So it's like me in building my gold portfolio. It's not me just, making pieces out of gold. There's a lot of attainable goals to get to that spot. And one of them
Right.
was the gold will get fire scale when working with it. And so that makes it black, and then it makes it not as easy to work with after that happens. So I
Mm.
had a new attainable goal was how to prevent that fire scale from happening, and then doing the research. So little steps to get to the big goal.
What causes that to happen? If
Causes
it's
what?
the black scale, like,
Oh, it's the metal. It's the metal catching impurities from the air and the flame, I believe. So it's almost like a soot on the metal, like if you had a piece of charred wood, kind of like that.
do you have to use a screen to prevent that from happening?
Dip it into a solution, and then you burn the solution off, and it'll create a fine layer around the metal that protects it when you put it to torch to it.
Okay, cool.
Previously did not know that while working with it. So it's like, yeah, you come along these roadblocks in the way.
Right. But yeah, you make a good point, like setting small goals for yourself that are attainable, to get those wins, and those small wins lead to bigger wins. That's a good practice to have for anybody.
Oh
know?
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What are some other ways that you practice self-care in your life to give you the energy to focus on your personal growth?
Ooh, that would definitely be stretching. As a jeweler, I
Yeah.
have like my hands like this all day. So my hands are up, my shoulders are up. And at the end of the day, you can have a lot of tension here in your neck and right in your hands too. So being conscious about that, stretching those specific areas out, and then also being conscious of how I sleep at night. So your hand naturally wants to go like this because that's
Uh,
how the muscles form. So when you're working with something like this all day with pliers or whatever going like this, it's really getting a strong grip like that. and it'll start to form, I believe it's called trigger grip, when your hand just stays like this because the muscles and tendons are so fixed on that position. So when I sleep at night, I'll be conscious and have my hand flat, either under a pillow or like this, to stretch those phalanges out so they don't naturally want to go like this. And it's taken a while, because you can't just do that on your first night and expect you to sweep like this or to always have your hand subconsciously flat. It takes training, but now I do it, and I've been doing it for years, where I just automatically know that my hand is always flat when I'm sleeping. And it plays a huge part, because all those muscles from your fingers go down to your forearm, into your bicep, right into your neck. And there's also, just being at a traditional jeweler's bench, even though, like I said, has my hands like this, the piece is right in front of me, so it actually promotes good posture straight up at my back. So if are we friends on Facebook?
I don't think so.
Because I was gonna say, I have my profile picture is of me in the hospital, and I have like a 2-foot hose. Me holding a 2-foot hose, and that hose was stuck inside me because I had a collapsed lung. And that, I believe, was due to just poor posture, because before having a traditional style jeweler's bench, I was just working on a chair or a regular desk, hunched over, looking at the piece, have my back really bent in an unnatural position, causing a lot of pressure on my lung. And then one day it just popped.
Yep.
That's the one. That's the one. Yeah, they had that tube inside me for about 7 days. So my lung finally regained air to fill up my chest cavity. But yeah, practicing proper posture is a huge one too. Because when you're sitting somewhere for hours at an end, whatever position you sit in, that's the way your joints are going to kind of want to form into, especially over time.
What's an obstacle that you're currently facing or recently faced, and what practices did you use to overcome it?
Ooh, what obstacles have I recently faced? I'll say this. I've been at this place for 3 years now, and I've been growing sunflowers out in the raised beds in my backyard. And the previous 2 years, a storm, the ones in Richmond that last like 20 minutes but are just treacherous, they would come through and just destroy my sunflowers at their peak. So this year I was like, I'm going to be proactive about it. So I put the cages that you grow tomatoes in. So I put those at the base of the sunflowers, and then a taller structure around the sunflowers, so when they hit the wind, they have something to lean on. So I can grow these sunflowers to their maximum potential. Because it's part of my routine, like every day, every morning, is to go out there, check how they're doing, pull a couple, dry leaves off them, water them. If they're in a bad position, kind of recenter them to a better one. So being able to protect them from any potential storms is a huge one. And so I have 2 beds, and one of the beds I did not put the tomato cages on. And as a little science experiment, and one of the days when it rained super heavy, it got the soil so wet that the sunflowers just derooted themselves and fell over on their sides.
Oh, wow.
So I was confirmed, like, oh yeah, the tomato cages worked really well in keeping them upright.
That's good for the ones that were covered.
Oh yeah, totally. I was able to save the ones that weren't, but if I hadn't noticed them, they could have just left like that for however long.
Yeah. Did you make that covering yourself?
Yeah, it's from wood from Home Depot. So it's 4 posts. It's a post on each side of the bed with a connecting one at the top, and then I put like a twine on the top part to almost create a grid. So the really tall ones can have something to sit on. So they're not just going all the way back and forth.
Very innovative.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have to check them out. Some of these ones are probably gonna grow like 15 feet tall.
Yeah, they can get big. I definitely want to stop by, man.
Oh yeah, and I also have some very tiny dwarf ones as well.
Are you growing any vegetables?
I got a couple beans. I think I got a good pepper tree going, but it hasn't shot out any peppers. The real small ones, the sillies, and a watermelon plant, but I don't see anything coming off it yet. Just some leaves. Just predominantly sunflowers.
Okay, well, sunflowers are pretty. That's a good
Yeah,
place.
yeah. It attracts the bumblebees and the birds.
Well, we need them, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
We're going to move into wrapping up, but there's a few recurring questions that I like to ask on the podcast.
Let's hear them.
You asked for a recurring, you gave me that suggestion. So I followed suit with that. First off is our mindset moment. With that, what is a quote or tip that you use that inspires you to keep going and stay positive despite personal hardships?
Oof. A quote. I'm gonna take this directly from Warren Miller, and I think he says it at the end of every documentary. He says, "If you don't do it this year, you'll just be 1 year older when you do," and that holds a lot for me. And he talks about it, just being a ski bum maybe. But it's just anything in life. If you don't do it now, you'll just be a little bit older when you do. One of the biggest things I think that eats me up is being a creative person, is trying not to compare yourself to other people, because you see other people on their journey, and some people will go at a very accelerated pace and others won't. And I just always tell myself, whatever speed I'm going at, that's the speed that I need to be going at. That's my speed. So when I get there, that's whatever. That's how old I'll be when I get there.
That's a great mindset to have, man. And I'm sorry, but who is Warren Miller? I'm not familiar with him.
Warren Miller is a documentary film guy who comes out with a movie, I think, every year for the past maybe 30 years. Could be more, could be less. A ski and snowboard documentary. So going out west, just going to all places around the world, filming people riding big mountains.
And did you become familiar with him when you were working at that longboard shop?
No, he always had his documentaries on TV growing up.
Okay.
And then my dad loved his movies as well. So that was like something we just watched. And it was like, oh my God, look at these people riding these mountains. They're massive.
That's super cool. Were you into skiing and snowboarding when you lived in Connecticut?
Oh yeah, definitely when I was up there in the Northwest, because you have New York State, New Hampshire, Maine, all up there. But it definitely doesn't compare to anything out west. Different styles. You got ice and then you got powder.
Yeah. Do you do any of that now?
No, definitely not. I haven't done it in a while. I just stick to cycling.
Yeah, right on. Next is PMA Warrior of the Week. Who is someone who inspires you to keep a positive mental attitude?
Ooh, positive mental attitude. I'm thinking of PMA and I'm like, let's go hardcore scene.
Yeah.
Ooh. Give me a minute to think about this.
For sure.
All right. I listen to a lot of podcasts, like, but one of them that sticks out in particular is Chris DiStefano. He has a Chrissy Chaos podcast, and he's always talking about himself just getting into these uncomfortable predicaments that happen with just everyday life. It's like everything that happens to anybody. But he always just follows it with Yeah, it just happened, and basically it is what it is type mentality. Like, I'm not gonna let it get me down. And one of the things he says is, if it won't matter in 5 years, don't give it anything longer than 5 minutes to make you upset. And sometimes with me, little things will definitely make me upset. But it's
Sure.
just trying to have a realization on what's controlling your emotions,
Yeah.
you or something outside of you.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much external forces that can get you down, but what's really important is that inner conversation and that, inner, you know, whatever you want to call it, gratitude, mindfulness, that what's going on with you, doesn't necessarily have to, you know, get you down. Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And last is good food, good mood. What's one of your go-to meals that helps you to feel your best?
Ooh, go-to meals that helps me feel my best. Probably smoothies. Definitely for sure. I'm an avid enjoyer of smoothies.
What do you use to make your smoothies? Do you have a special blender?
I do. I have a like one of those blenders with the three arms on it, so it gets everything. I really go to the store and whatever they have in season for fruits, and then on top of that, bananas are pretty much always a staple because they're always in season. Put in a lot of spinach, maybe some green beans in there. Definitely always raw ginger. Just cut it straight from the root. Um, Sometimes I'll put a little flaxseed in there, sometimes a little oatmeal. Never really heavy with the dairy though.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anyone adding green beans to smoothies. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
It's just something that, I like to eat, and I also have them right there when I'm making a smoothie. So I'll just throw them in there. But yeah, my smoothies usually always come out green.
Yeah, well, you're definitely adding a lot of chlorophyll to it with the spinach and the green beans. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think it really kicked off because last year I had that bicycle accident, and when I was doing some research online, I was reading what foods help promote um, recovery from injuries with heavy inflammation. They were like leafy greens and things like that. So that's kind of what kickstarted me into that cycle.
Yeah, and you're able to get over the not so good taste because you're getting the benefits of it, right?
Oh yeah, it's definitely like that symbiosis going on.
Well, it seems like it's working because you're, a healthy guy. You kill it on the bike, and you're doing great work with all of your art.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people follow along with your journey if they want to see what you're doing?
If they want to follow me on Instagram, I'm at WASH Design, and that's WASH DSGN. And that goes the same for online, www.washdesign.com. And if you go on my website, you can get a more in-depth look beyond just the Instagram of what is actually going on my jewelry bench. See a little bit of the process that goes into the pieces being made.
Right. Do you have any shows coming up?
Yeah, actually, this weekend I got my first show back since the pandemic. It's going to be at the Diamond, and then this October at the Richmond Tattoo Convention at the DoubleTree Hilton. And that's going to be the weekend of October 21st.
Okay, cool. Well, this podcast will not be out before this weekend, but
Nice.
it will be out before October.
I
Pretty sure
love
about
it.
that. So we'll definitely send people there, and I hope I can make that too. That sounds like fun.
Oh, I definitely think it'd be right up your alley.
Yeah, definitely. Big fan of the tattoos. So we'll see.
All right.
Again, Tommy, it was great talking to you.
Most definitely. I'll see you out there on the bikes.
Yeah, man. See you later.
All right. Peace out, Joe.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out our podcast. I hope you got a lot out of it and it was helpful for you in your personal growth journey. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, please do so on your preferred podcast provider. We're available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Stay blessed and keep the PMA. Later.